Brilliant. Good evening, councillors. It is 7 o'clock, near enough, and the start of this evening's meeting. Before we start, though, I'd like to make a really warm welcome back to Mr Froggatt, who has returned to Oswestry Town Council with his knowledge and expertise. So thank you and welcome. We do have a few members of the public with us, as well as our speakers this evening as well. Without further ado, we will move on to the very first item, which is the public participation session. 15 minutes, and if you are speaking, 3 minutes maximum. Is there any members of the public that would like to speak at this point in time? Brilliant. Michael, would you like to head towards Daryl's speaker?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I've just travelled up from Brighton today with work, so if I sound incoherent, then it's true. That's how I'm feeling right now. Hopefully I can get some clarity in what I want to say. I'm Michael Bastow, and I'm part, with many other people in this community, part of the Climate Action Hub and what we do there, as you know, which some of you have visited, or many of you have visited, I should say. And some of the work that we do in relation to an agenda item today, I may say, is bringing people together, obviously, and being positive around people making change for themselves and sort of connecting as a network and believing that change is possible and not looking to, for example, just the town council to create the positive change in the world that we do need. And within 3 minutes, I'm not going to try and explain all that around climate, but it's not just climate, it's cost of living, it's many other things, and all the challenges that we do have. And I believe that the council can be a part of that, and the ask today is that you are a little bit more we're able to spend a little bit more time with you to talk through some of the ideas we have around the people of Oswestry creating the change that they want. And it's not a demand, in my view, on much more of your time and resources, because I know finances are a challenge and part of the discussion that's ongoing in terms of consultation. But to get to the point, we would really encourage and like you to vote what I've seen on the agenda today, which is around having the climate and sustainability partnering group. I just think it gives us opportunity to spend time with yourselves and to talk around the potential of what we can do for the positive change that we think is needed in the town. I think that's probably near my 3 minutes, so thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Michael. Is there any other members of the public that want to? You okay? Brilliant. Okay. Thank you for that, Michael. Okay, so we then move on to 2B, which is, 2A, apologies for absence.
Thank you. We've got apologies for absence from Councillor Mark Roberts, personal commitments, and Councillor Lucy McKinney, who is poorly.
Okay. Councillors, are we all in favour of accepting those apologies for absence? Yep, fabulous. Okay. 2B, disclosure of councillors' interests on any matters in relation to the Code of Conduct, and I will start with myself, and if I can remember the words, I have received dispensation for any items on Shropshire Council services, and because I have
Considering matters in the wider public interest, because they're general.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I will move around to my left.
I also am portfolio holder for housing manager at Shropshire Council. However, I have been granted a dispensation in the wider public interest to discuss items on Shropshire Council's devolution of services.
Sorry, get myself organised.
I'm declaring interest in, as a member of Shropshire Council, for anything to do with that, particularly the transfer of services, and I've applied for and given a dispensation for the reasons given, but particularly as the planning portfolio holder, which is a strategic role and not involved with individual planning application in the neighbourhood plan item and the planning item on the agenda.
I also have a dispensation in regard to shared services. I have no particular role or governance in that arrangement at Shropshire Council, but I am a Shropshire Councillor.
Again, I've applied for a dispensation as a member of Shropshire Council, so which I've been granted for all items on transfer of services and assets.
None from me.
Thanks, Richard.
I too am on Shropshire Council and have been granted a disposition to for other registrable interests on any items regarding the Shropshire Council services transference.
Hi, Councillor Markwayne. I have to declare that I am Vice Chair of the Northern Planning Committee on Shropshire Council. Any discussion I have to do with planning at this council meeting will be for this council, and any meeting at Shropshire I will discuss with the items and the information present at that particular time. I too have been granted a dispensation since I am a Shropshire councillor. I have been granted dispensation to speak and vote on matters concerning the development or devolvement of services between Oswestry and Shropshire Council.
Anybody else? No? Okay. Thank you. Okay, we move on to a rather more interesting subject, and we've got both Rob and yourself from Cambrian Heritage Railway. So the floor is yours.
Rob's going to come and speak it. You shouldn't have said that to Rob.
Okay. Well, I was being polite. That's what you do.
Well, please find it an interesting subject. Thank you very much. It's been suggested that I come here tonight and take up 10 minutes of your time to give you a brief update on our project, what we've been up to over recent years, and some of our aspirations for the future. So, as was touched on, I'm Chairman of Cambrian Heritage Railways. Just giving you a bit of background, we were formed in 2009 primarily to take on the Bowen to Landy railway that runs through the town. From that, we've been developing two separate projects, and it's probably worthwhile recapping our projects. The first of them is a community rail scheme, relinking the town of Oswestry to the main line at Bowen. This project has had some very good progress over recent years. We've secured freehold additional land at Bowen, transfer of all the statutory powers to ourselves. Then, under the tail end of the last Conservative government, we accessed funding via the Restoring Your Railways Fund to develop a options appraisal for the community rail scheme. That was successful. It identified that it was a viable option to take forward to outline business case. Then that pot of money, as these things do, vanished, and we got created a Network North pot of money out of what was HS2. We were successful in bidding on that pot of money for the outline business case. That was a pot that in theory would go right through full business case to funding construction as well. We successfully delivered the outline business case, which again said that the community rail scheme was a viable option. That pot of money then disappeared come the election, as these pots do. And since that time, the scheme is really on hold, awaiting a suitable pot of money, a suitable funding stream to come along. Next steps with that are a full business case, which would actually quantify definitive costs, definitive benefits, and then obviously funding for construction. So in the meantime, it's very much on hold. Helen Morgan, our MP, has obviously been very supportive, has spoke recently on the need for it, and the need is probably worth recapping on, because there is a need for access to public transport and development of public transport, both to help towns like where a large number of people commute distances, but also as we move towards net zero, you know, road use is going to become increasingly penalised, and actually having public transport options are all important. And I'm convinced that the ability to buy a through ticket from Oswestry to any national rail destination will transform the peoples of the town's use of the rail network. So that's the need, but in terms of the last year, very limited progress. It is waiting a suitable funding stream. The other project that we're delivering is a heritage tourist railway. This is about economic regeneration, attracting footfall to the town. For those of you not familiar with heritage railways, these are multi-year, in fact that's slightly untruth, they're multi-decade projects, phase delivered over a great many years. In terms of our benefit, the projected benefit for the heritage railway once fully restored is around 90,000 visitors per annum. That's what we're working towards. And in terms of the financial value of that to the town, the secondary spend from visitors to heritage railways varies. It varies anywhere between £1 for every £1 spent on the railway up to £9.50 being spent as secondary spend. We've actually been identified as secondary spend value of around £4. So for every £1 spent on Cambrian Heritage Railway, £4 will be spent in the local area. So the benefit from 90,000 visitors is quite clear. The first phase of our heritage railway was Oswestry to Western Wharf, which opened in 2022. That was financed through our own efforts, resources, materials that we already had. Shropshire Council have been supportive with other projects. This council also gave us a grant as well towards that scheme, and we also accessed funds out of the European Regional Development Fund, as it was at that time. That railway opened in 2022, and since that time it's been about consolidating what we've been doing. Like most heritage railways, you see a spike in visitor numbers initially and then they roll off before then picking back up. And we've seen that trend. I think this year will be the first year we see growth again in passenger numbers. Certainly early indications are quite good this year. We're about 10% up on last year, so we're quite pleased with that. But the recent progress has all been about consolidating what we're doing, refining the marketing, understanding how the public want to use our railway. We do a lot of advertising and promoting now down the A5 corridor right out into the West Mids, because that's always been identified as our appeal. And we've also been refining our product. The number of days in the timetable has increased. Wednesday services have been quite popular, and they've increased every year right up to this year. We've also been doing a lot of work within Oswestry Station building. As most of you know, we've been wanting some security there for a great many years. We've got a tenancy at will currently off Shropshire Council, which we gained back in 2022 for the ground floor. The external of the building has recently been refurbished, which is certainly a step in the right direction. It makes the building look a lot more appealing, certainly more of a gateway to the heritage railway that it should be, but it's also a gateway the other way in our visitors to the town. So we have use of the ground floor, and we've been putting our own time and money into the ground floor. So we've last year refurbished the shop in there, moved the shop around, reintroduced cafe sales there to up our secondary spend, created a function room where over last year we've been holding a number of events, model railway events. We relocated our beer festival last year from Weston to Oswestry. We've had art exhibition, shows, talks. So we're now making full use of the ground floor, and that is increasing, and we're trying to develop next year's timetable at the moment to continue that growth. As mentioned, we're about 10% up on where we were last year. That's a financial figure. So we are continuing to grow, continuing to make progress. In terms of the future, we've not done much work towards the next phase of Heritage Railway. It's all been about consolidating. But where we are at the moment, we're getting towards what we feel is a comfortable position with the current product. So probably next year we'll start looking at what comes next. But in the meantime, it is about that development, that growth, and increasing the footfall. And that's about where we're up to at the moment. Is there any questions?
I think before we get some questions, I think thank you. You've just portrayed the fact that for a very small tourist attraction in Oswestry, you have consolidated and yet grown constantly in the last couple of years, which I'm not sure many tourist attractions in Oswestry could necessarily say. And I think, you know, we've got exciting things with your Christmas train on the Heritage Railway, the possibility of having 90,000 people coming to Oswestry because of the railway line is really, really positive, and that opening up Oswestry to the railway network to allow them to go to the beach, to go to London, or to, you know, catch a ferry to Ireland. There's so many opportunities for people that don't have a car or access to a car, and I think that can't be understated at all. And you have just been shortlisted for a Heritage Railway Award.
We have. Shropshire Council have won a National Rail Heritage Award for the work to the external of the building. We at Cambrian Heritage Railways have been shortlisted in the Heritage Railway Association's National Awards for Best Station of the Year. So we've been one of 4 going through to the award ceremony for that. That looks slightly wider than building work. That looks at the volunteer efforts, particularly from Jenny's efforts as station manager, the engagement, you know, the Flowers Alstrian Bloom nomination, you know, various things like that. So,
and I think that just highlights yet again the impact of volunteers in Oswestry, which is just absolutely vital. So thank you. Councillors, any questions? David?
It wasn't necessarily a question, just an observation in terms of the economic impact that you're forecasting. Having been born in Bridgnorth, with the Severn Valley, every time that closed because of a landslip or something, the economic impact on the town has been colossal.
yes.
So that just illustrates the swing you can potentially get by bringing the footfall.
Yeah, brilliant. Jonathan?
Thank you. So as you say, you're doing the Heritage Railway and potentially looking at connecting with Gabowin. I seem to recall many years ago there was talk about plans to offer in the future some kind of service which could drop people off at a halt within the industrial estate. Potentially workers who work on the industrial estate, people who need to get from one end of town to the other. Do you see that being possible in future as well as or was that, or they only ever rumours?
No. No, so there's no hard line, although I've described a hard line between the Heritage Railway and the Community Railway as Oswestry. One of the options that has been looked at has been the Community Railway would overlap slightly as far as the industrial estate. In terms of the options appraisal and the outline business case that have been undertaken on that scheme, they do just look at Oswestry to Gabowin. But that's not saying that it can't be broadened up, it's not saying it can't be extended. As soon as you've got an operational railway, then it becomes very flexible, doesn't it?
Purely just curiosity, do you know roughly by the reports you've done what the value of the contract is required to actually complete the line?
In terms of the community rail, we're only on outline business case, and those costs were, I think, around 15 million for the capital investment in the scheme, which is a considerable sum, but in that sum is complete lifting and relaying of the railway to actually make it future-proof. So it could be delivered cheaper, but your ongoing maintenance would be higher. So,
Yeah.
but it's provisionally around that 15 million mark.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, any more questions, queries, anything you want to raise or talk about? No? Thank you, Jenny.
Okay.
Thank you, Rob.
I would as well just extend, if there's any members who wish to come and visit us, we're entering the close season now, but certainly next summer, next spring, the offer is there and the invitation is out to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you both. Okay, thank you, councillors. We will then move on to item number 4, which is the minutes of the last council meeting. Any items on that minutes that don't read right, incorrect, and the amendments required? If not, I'm happy to move from the chair. Thank you, Jonathan. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Pen? Yes, boss. Right, we move on to item number 5, subcommittees and working groups. So we have got minutes from Kyglass Charity, Llywyd Mansion, the Centre, Police Partnership and Kyglass Park and Cemetery. I think, does anybody, do you want to go individually against each one, or are you happy to move on block, councillors? Mark?
Thank you, Chair. I have one question on 4C, if that's all right, an observation.
Centre Steering Group.
Yeah, when I was reading through it, something struck me, and it was the people present. That they are not individually named; they are just organisations. All the minutes I've come across tend to have the people actually present, and if you look at our kind of minutes with councillors, it would be, I think, quite useful. There weren't that many, I presume, and if they are actually named individuals with the organisation in brackets, it actually might be a little bit more transparent as to who was present. It's just an observation.
Yeah, happy to do that for next time round, if that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Richard?
I'm happy to consider them all together. I just wanted to make a comment. I'm on the Llywyd Mansion Steering Group, so 5B. I just wanted to say I think it's a brilliant group. I think Samantha Jones does a fantastic job in terms of driving it. The only question I'd like to point out is it possible to get the minutes produced a little bit quicker? Every time I look at the minutes, it's not last minutes, it's the minutes of the month before. The next meeting's not until the middle of January, so I'm hoping that we can get November's meetings out by then. But is there some kind of timescale where we could try and keep on top of the minutes coming that are actually the most recent ones?
Yeah, the steering group obviously get the next set of minutes. You get the next set of minutes that have been approved. Sorry. So the protocol, I suppose, is the minutes from, let's say, September, then go to the October steering group meeting to be signed off and approved, and then they come to council. That's the way I've been working it. But there's no reason why I can't. But I can certainly circulate the draft minutes to members for information, so I can do that. And just on that item, if I may, just and I think Councillor Almett said, you know, this is an important group doing good work. I am arranging for a briefing session for you on the 15th of January. Ahead of a decision on the final option, which needs to be done in February. I'm a little bit nervous about coming to you in February and going, there's a solution, and not being able to talk you through that. So there's a briefing session being arranged. It will be a limited range of options. The options around accommodation seem to be sort of floating away. I think there's quite a number of challenges around that. But the important thing, and as the chair of the steering group we've spoken, is that these decisions are yours ultimately. So you know you need to be informed on that. So yeah.
Okay. Unless there are any further queries, I'm going to suggest that we accept on block. Councillors, all those in favour?
Probably would be prudent of me at this point to just highlight what you have approved in the Kyglass Cemetery Management Group minutes. Yeah. Which I know there are 3 main recommendations, which are the licence to trade, so there's a way forward been found on that by the group, the disapproval of the Bowls Club use of it, and the donations policy, which was circulated to members. So just for information.
Okay. I ask again. All those in...
You voted it through, Mark.
Fine.
Okay. Good way to keep going this evening.
Okay, item number 6, to answer any questions in accordance with standing orders upon which formal notice has been given.
I haven't had any questions.
Okay. We move on to number 7 then. Policies, schemes and schemes of delegation as set out in Appendix B.
Is it okay if I introduce just briefly?
Feel free.
I know there's another question. I won't steal your thunder. I think just important that the steering delegation reflect the current system in place, not future, or reviews the future structure. So that's the way it's informed by council approving that they want to do something, and then that's reflected in the scheme of delegations, which then comes to you for consideration. But I know there are a couple of omissions, so I'm happy to take the questions.
James?
Thank you. The sort of omission that is mentioned later on in this meeting is that the transformation working group is missing, and the steering groups for the Centre and Llywyd Mansion as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to forget the transformation working group, and apologies that I missed that from there. Just make a secondary note. Yeah, happy to add. I'm happy with Llywyd Mansion steering group being in there or not. It doesn't necessarily have delegated powers as such because the decisions come here, but I think it's actually important to reflect that it does exist, and it will be existing for the next, well, fingers crossed, for the next 3 years. So yeah, I'm happy to add those in, councillors.
Okay. With those additions, are there any other comments, queries? No? Okay. Are we therefore, with those additions, comfortable to approve the scheme of delegation as set out in Appendix B? All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Training policy, B. I think last council meeting we suggested adding a training contract almost for people undertaking training where costs were involved. Is there anything else to add, James?
It sort of mentions councillor training as well, so I think it's important to get like planning training, especially for newer members, because it is quite a in-depth thing that you have to learn very quickly. And just maybe mentioning new councillor training in it specifically to sort of give a outline of what people do need to learn at the start.
I think we were sent out initially, weren't we, the opportunity to join training as new councillors or councillors at the start of this term. I remember seeing an invite to.
Yeah, really grateful that those, certainly the planning one, we offer both sets of training, so it's important that we put them in the policy, so thank you. Okay. Just in terms of the staff training policy, so this is a bit of a statement of intent. The plan there is to expand what we currently do for one of our teams, is identify a bit of a matrix of the skills needed and the training on offer. So all colleagues have access to what's known as Leap Into Learning, which is an online platform with specific training modules on there. But I think we just need to flesh out a little bit and what's the word, codify it in a bit more detail for staff. So just, but it doesn't change the policy.
Okay. So we are being asked to review and approve the training policy. So councillors, all those in favour? Thank you very much. Unanimous. Moving on to item 8, consultation on the new design guidance documents. Any comments? David?
With my portfolio hat on, there's 35 days left to run for all of these, so there's plenty of opportunity for people to have a deep dive because they're not necessarily small, but there's things like swift boxes and back boxes in new houses are being added in, and there are things being fed back into. So it will be a living thing, but the government are scrapping SPDs in June, July, so we've got to get a lot of SPDs done and adopted before then, because once they're adopted they're fine, and anything in train will be fine, but we won't be able to start any new ones.
Yes.
So one of the issues is we're obviously thinking about doing a neighbourhood plan, and I just wonder what, one of the proposals would be for an Oswestry specific design guide. So perhaps I reflect on that later in the agenda when that item's been discussed. But yeah, I don't know if there's any value in doing both.
Because you can do it 2 ways round. You can have the specific design guide like the Shrewsbury one, or you can build it into the neighbourhood plan and have the design codes built into the neighbourhood plan.
So in terms of, oh, sorry, James.
was more just a suggestion of, rather than come to council, these things could come to the planning committee, just to, because planning committee is usually quite short. It's a matter of, it allows people to focus on the planning consultations, especially if there are going to be a load of them coming in the next few months.
Yeah, and that's fine. I think it's difficult with timing a little bit, so not knowing whether we're going to do a planning committee or not. So, and you know, getting on an agenda is the most important. But yeah, obviously if we can put on a planning agenda, we endeavour to do so.
So I think colleagues were just being asked to engage in this, and if you wish to feedback online in the next 30 odd days, that would be really positive and really interesting in light of a potential neighbourhood plan for the future. Okay, so we're not being asked to do anything further than that other than acknowledging and... Okay, thank you. Okay, they sound like they're having fun. So, item number 9, help shape the future of the visitor economy in Shropshire, which, given that we've spent a bit of time this afternoon or this evening talking about Cambrian Heritage Railway, seems pertinent. Colleagues, you've read it. Duncan.
With that perfect introduction, on page 24, if you're interested, it says work to do. On top of the work to do is optimising rail connectivity with multimodal connections, e.g. between Gabowen and Oswestry. But when you look at the actual actions that are coming out of it, it's sadly missing. So I think we ought to ask those preparing this plan to actually implement the work they've identified us to do and actually put within the plan that we need a better way of linking Oswestry with Gabowen Station, however that may happen. I'd also like to ask, I think there's been an under-recognition of the potential in here for active transport as a means of tourism. So I'm talking about cycling, aren't I, but also walking as well. I think Shropshire's ideally placed fit, and everything's ever tried to capitalise on that. I don't think it needs a lot of investment in terms of new roads. I think we've got a good network of county roads. It needs some signposting and it would need some accommodation. But I do think it's something that I would like to suggest that we ask those preparing this plan to take more seriously in terms of us becoming a visitor centre, visitor attraction for the future.
Okay. Is that specific to the Oswestry area, Duncan?
I mean, yeah, well, Shropshire, to be perfectly honest, I mean, clearly it is, but equally pertinent to South Shropshire as well and Shrewsbury.
Okay, Darryl? Okay.
Mine was just, I read through this when it first came out, and the fact that they did spell some of the things around Oswestry actually wrong, which have now been corrected. So if you've read a more recent version, Kai Glass isn't Kaya Glass anymore, and Poncus Disley was actually spelled completely wrong. So it's like, I'd hope that they put a bit more attention into our main tourist attractions when they're doing policies in the future.
Mine is obviously it's outsourced to this Broadlands to pretty much do the bulk of the work. I looked through it. It's currently given delegation for them to actually do the actual bulk of the information, but I would rather this council actually be somewhat involved in it. Obviously, who better to suggest obviously how to promote the town, what to promote, how to promote it, than the people actually heavily involved with it and actually who's been voted in by the residents to represent them. So I think that it would be good for at least some or all of the council to have their say.
Do you want to respond to that one?
I suppose it's perhaps just encouraging and circulating information when I get it, and encouraging you to attend. We don't have the capacity internally to be doing the work that OBT do. Maybe something that we'll review in the future. But we commission them to protect Oswestry and Oswestry's interests. That's why you ask them and promote Oswestry's interests. But there's a risk of having two different messages within that, which I understand. But yeah, I'll absolutely encourage and share the information.
Yeah, it was purely to work together, not to overtake what they're doing, but just to work part of it to help it just be a bit more cohesive.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, thank you.
Thanks. The Destination Management Partnership, in my opinion, historically has not done a great job of creating a destination because we're dominated by short stays. It's nobody, we don't have enough long stay visits where the money gets spent several times over. So the more we can do to actually encourage that, the better. And certainly you'll be able to tie this back into the neighbourhood plan and do other things to just make sure things are cohesive. So it's definitely worth emphasising that. Having gone to the flax mill, that they're going to do quite an emphasis on joining up the dots on the industrial heritage side from Ironbridge through the flax mill and all sorts of things. So there's different ways you can package up the tourism elements rather than just say come to Route, a great place. You can actually bundle it and sell it as a better proposition for people to come and visit.
Yeah, certainly North Shropshire, you could definitely link up Mears and Mosses and links between some of our towns in North Shropshire. So, yep. So we are being asked to contribute by the 2nd of February. Are we?
I'm happy to take those as contributions.
Is there any other contributions? And I guess if you've got anything before mid-January, if you want to forward them through to the town clerk as well, if you've had Christmas to think about it as well. Yeah, we are contributing by Monday the 2nd of February. Duncan?
Can I, if we're commenting now, can I echo what Duncan said, which is the lack of stuff on transport links between here and Gabowen, whether it's rail or bus link at the moment, because, I mean, as a business owner in town, I know that I've had big groups who have decided not to come to Oswestry for two reasons: lack of accommodation and lack of public transport to get into town. And I think it is the one biggest issue we've got, or that pair are the biggest issues we've got.
Yeah, connectivity.
And it's not there, as Duncan says, in the headlines.
Yeah, and connectivity between public transport and trains. Yeah. Agreed. Yep, we've got some notes from tonight, and if there's anything else, please get back to Aaron by mid-January. Excellent. Okay, we've got no more further decisions to make about that one. Okay, we have 3 reports from the town clerk, starting with Shropshire Council Services, a new way of working.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just sort of introduce this report as briefly as I can. I think what I've tried to do in this is set out the history, background, but fundamentally give you an update on the current position. As you've noticed, there has been a slight shift in the last month or since we last came to you. But still, as I see it, there are still some issues that we need to resolve. And most importantly, I would say, is whether there's an asset transfer or not, which hasn't been cleared in the correspondence, and therefore, arising from that is the nature of the agreement. My job is to protect the council, this council's interests, and to do the due diligence to allow you to make the decisions that you make. So what I've brought forward is a proposal which I hope is relatively logical, and it's aimed at sort of managing the risk that we're facing, but also the ambition of the council. What I would say that the proposal, given that we're at the end of December, is not deliverable by the 1st of April 2026, I should say. And there are a few other issues such as 2P to work through. We will need to prioritise, but 3 months is too short a lead-in time to get members of staff in, to get buildings and vehicles. And I have to say this again as part of my due diligence, that any issues with Shropshire Council contracts are not necessarily a factor for this council to have to consider. So I think what the report highlights is the opportunity costs alongside that, and it shows the level of investment we'll have to make. Just for me, there are a couple of red lines, one being the agreement. We need to have an agreement in place, or the bones of an agreement, before we spend money. And similarly with, I think the ask on the Oak Street car park has been outstanding for quite a number of years now, and I think we need a little bit of commitment on that. And then the final point is just around the finances. So the proposal, I'm not sure I should undermine my proposal by saying it doesn't quite stack up, but it doesn't quite stack up with the budget as it's set out now, or the draft budget. It's a difficult position. I feel like we've been a little bit rushed. We're working through this budget. The figures presented in this report as a surplus of 322,000 aren't quite accurate. As I say, we're still working through the the detail, but it doesn't reflect the business rates impact, for example, because that happened a few weeks ago. And there's some other adjustments. And again, with only a one-year financial offer from Shropshire Council, it's difficult to prepare a budget beyond 26-27. So I'm quite nervous going into the January budget, and based on where we're at, I'm likely to be recommending to you a higher increase in the precept than we discussed at the workshop in November. I'll try and answer any questions. I'm not sure I've got all the answers.
Okay, Duncan, James, start with.
I have to say, I'm trying not to. I can't use my words moderately, but this is an utter shambles, isn't it? Initially, we were looking at street scene. We were told the cost was around 360. We spent an awful lot of time trying to work out the cost of that. And now, 2 weeks later, we're told, oh, it's not street scene now. It's just grass cutting. And the figure they now giving us for grass cutting is around 80,000. But we were given a figure in October of 170,000. I've seen another figure of 200,000, but now we know it's 80,000. And we pay you 70% of that. We pay you 50,000. And the clerk has done an assessment of what it will cost us. It's about 380,000 if I add up those figures, and another 100 grand capital. Well, utter madness. I mean, how on earth do you think the public... I mean, if you want to know what 380,000 is, it's a 77% increase in the precept to achieve absolutely nothing, to cut Shropshire Council's grass for them, which they can apparently cut for 80,000. So there's no public gain in any of this, huge amount of officer time taken, and where we've got to, we haven't got the level of detail we need to do due diligence, we haven't got the details requested, we've a simple request to say, we will happily talk about taking these parks off you, which means we can invest in them, not only cut the grass, but we can look at the areas, we can develop them. We've asked for that before your time on the council, to be perfectly blunt, on the last council. And we just simple request, not even necessarily all of them, just you tell us which ones you're happy to consider, and we'll have that discussion, and a complete blank wall. The previous council, the Shropshire Council, just ignored us, and I'm trying to think we were better off being ignored than we were being messed around in this way, with no lack of clarity and no ability to deliver for the people of Shropshire, let alone the people of Oswestry either. We can't present a business case. We have to now proceed to budget. I can see no option but to just put this on one side and proceed to budget. We can't implement this by the 1st of April as their wish. They will therefore have to grant another year on the contract, I expect, which means it will be another year before it probably all comes round again. So I do think, I don't know what to say to the portfolio holder, but I do think it's really a very sorry chapter in the way of partnership working. And as it says, it has fallen far short of the principles set out in the Memorandum of Understanding. Those aren't my words. They're the words of the clerk, who's completely apolitical and dispassionate about this. So we need to recognise where we are. It's very dangerous stuff. The costs are huge. We could do an awful lot with the £160,000. We could buy that property next door, and we could do all sorts of things with it. What we don't want to do is just end up being the gardener for Shropshire Council and cutting their grass and picking up their litter, which is what we've been asked to do.
Okay, James.
I'm honestly disappointed at the complete disillusionment and just insanity of that centre, all of that speech. You've mixed up capital and revenue multiple times. You've mentioned me as the portfolio holder when I am not involved in this specifically. As the participants
mentioned any portfolio holder, so I can't understand why the portfolio holder. I didn't say the portfolio holder. Point of order, and I haven't mixed up revenue and capital. I've referred to the figures in the report which identifies capital and identifies revenue.
James.
Last time when Grace raised a point of order to say that this matter had been discussed.
Councillors, can we please, this is really, really important. We really all need a voice. James.
So when talking to residents anywhere in this town, they raise issues around the maintenance and appearance of our open spaces or a lack of facilities in them. The proposal in front of us today is a first step towards realising a truly ambitious plan. And while there's still several important details to work out, I'm confident that the skills and experience of our officer team and manual staff and the passion from all members in this room can make this opportunity brilliant for Oswestry and its residents. I feel it's important that you bring the staff along with us, ensuring they have good facilities to work in with the resources, both financial and personnel, to truly bring about the huge potential that this council does have. Regardless of whether we decide or end up taking on any new services, I feel an investment to expand beyond the Guildhall for existing staff to allow for better facilities offices and even potential rentable space is an opportunity we should jump on. I also feel that it's inevitable that some investment into the depot storage area on the horse market will be required to allow for even the most basic of service expansion, even if we just wanted to manage the green spaces as previously indicated. And so the capital investment here is also something I feel we should agree to. I've recently heard the phrase, the only thing residents of Shropshire are afraid of more than change is things staying the same. And I feel that this is very fitting for the political decision we must make here. Do we really want things to stay the same, not invest, and watch while decisions are made so that our green spaces and services are further deteriorating while our council tax increases anyway? So make the bold choice to invest significantly into these areas, take on the challenge, do it better ourselves than what we're currently settling for. Until we have given the direction of what we envision this looking like, the potential budget to cover it, going into discussions knowing exactly what we want out of them, and believing that we can do this, we'll be stuck in a delay spiral that will lead to opportunities being missed. I therefore feel that with this report's proposal as a base, I'd like to make a proposal of the following: that a working group is set up to work alongside the town clerk to flesh out the proposal presented today and actively engage with Shropshire Council to deliver a workable arrangement as soon as practically possible. That the draft budget is amended to allow for up to an additional £588,315 to be raised via a precept increase for this and other identified priorities, amounting to a maximum monthly increase of around £8.92 for a Band D property in Oswestry. Any in-year expenditure could be taken from reserves but then backfilled by the precept increase from April 26. The draft budget includes sufficient allocation of capital expenditure to allow for relevant purchases and investment required, with any in-year expenditure decisions needing brought to council as soon as possible. To focus on the transfer via long-term leasehold of any and all open spaces, green areas, play areas, or other facilities within the town boundary to Oswestry Town Council, with options narrowed down by the working group based on feasibility and sustainability. To investigate if the scope could be expanded for investment and maintenance of connecting footpaths, allowing for the development of a town-wide active travel network, including green corridors, and to agree to the return of the Oak Street car park to Oswestry Town Council following the end of the current lease, and to continue talks around Festival Square if feasible or likely.
Okay. That sounds like a very long motion, but it is a motion nonetheless. Do you have a seconder for that motion?
Can I have it reread? Because to be honest, it was too long for me to remember the figures, so can I have it reread just so we can remember it? Hopefully sent round to be even better. It's very, very long.
Yeah, if you...
Well, you can have another 3 minutes, okay, because you could ask.
So a working group is set up to work alongside the town clerk to flesh out. A working group is set up to work alongside the town clerk to flesh out the proposal presented today and actively engage with Shropshire Council to deliver a workable arrangement as soon as practically possible. The draft budget's amended to allow for an additional £588,315 to be raised.
Quickly, is it 588,000? 588,000. £500,000. I just can't hear it.
£588,315 to be raised via precept increase for this and other identified priorities, amounting to a maximum monthly increase of £8.92 for a Band D property in Oswestry.
Duncan, please stop interrupting. Just let him speak.
Any in-year expenditure to be taken from reserves and then backfilled by the precept increase from April 26. The draft budget includes sufficient allocation of capital expenditure to allow for relevant purchases and investment required, with any in-year expenditure decisions needed brought to council as soon as possible. To focus on the transfer via long-term leasehold of any and all open spaces, green areas, play areas or other facilities within the town boundary to Oswestry Town Council, with options narrowed down by the working group based on feasibility and sustainability. To investigate if the scope could then be expanded for investment and maintenance of connecting footpaths, allowing for development of a town-wide active travel network, including green corridors, and to agree to the return of the Oak Street car park to Oswestry Town Council following the end of the current lease, and continue talks in Festival Square if feasible or likely.
If there's anybody else that would like to speak on that, Jay.
Thank you. There's still a couple of things around this that I still haven't managed to get any clarity over. I think, when we talk about, £8 a month, it's, it's still £100 a year. It's a great amount of money for a lot of families. So I think when we're banding around, this is going to be one of the largest precept increases I've ever seen in my time in this council. That's really worrying in itself. But the other thing is, and I've mentioned this in council before, that if we're taking on these services, which Oswestry residents are currently paying for in their Shropshire Council council tax, if there's no reduction in Shropshire Council's council tax to pay for those services, and then ours goes up to pay for them, our residents are paying for them twice. I don't understand why this seems to just always go unanswered when I raise it here. But if I as a resident, I currently pay Shropshire Council to cut my verges, do my various grounds maintenance and things like that. You're now proposing that Oswestry Town Council raise our precept in order to pay for those services to be done. But I'm already paying for them to be done. So I assume Shropshire Council are going to give me a tax break on my council tax. Or, well, they're not. So I'm just going to start being charged by Oswestry Town Council for the same thing. Why am I paying twice for the same service? Please, somebody explain to me why on earth that's a good deal for me as a resident of Oswestry.
Mark.
It's not a good deal for you. However, if you were aware of all the discussions that have been taking place over the last several months, we are not going to be paying Shropshire Council for these services from April, because the services are going to be reduced or cut. Therefore, if we don't do something for our residents, they will not have those services that they want and they want improved.
Sorry, but it's not a real answer, is it? Because it's statutory, isn't it? They
Jay,
can't not
please.
deliver them, can they? They have to deliver them. That's a lie.
Councillors, we need to act professionally and appropriately. I want everybody to have a voice, and we have got a proposal on the table. If there is anybody else, so Mark, you've spoken, Duncan, you've spoken. Is there anybody else in the room? Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Jonathan.
Just to say that I second Councillor Owen's proposal, as this needs careful, meticulous planning. So that's why I second it.
Okay. So we have a proposal and a seconder, Duncan. No more than 3 minutes, please.
Okay, a couple of things. First of all, there's been no proposals of the grass cutting at all. We have not had one piece of paper from Shropshire Council proposing to reduce the grass cutting frequency. There is legislation on how it has to maintain its land. But we have had rumours and inclinations about libraries. I've heard about care services and about a whole host of other things. And they are very worrying. We need to take a decision when we know all the cuts being proposed as to which ones we can and which ones we should seek to protect, rather than jumping in to protect one when we haven't got any evidence base for it. The Band D property precept for us is £107 for the year. I'm still struggling to try and work out the figures I've been given. I'd like to ask the proposer, what is the new Band D precept you are proposing? It sounds to me like a doubling in the precept. And so you're asking residents to double their precept to achieve absolutely nothing, because we're going to be cutting the grass only as often as Shropshire Council. I see nothing in this to improve that. I see nothing to increase, because we are only being asked to cut the grass. So it seems a diabolical offer to the residents of Oswestry. The residents of Morder and residents of Whittington won't have any of this. They can just carry on as they are. They won't have to have a double in their precept. We will have a double in our precept, but no reduction in our Shropshire Council bill. So it's no benefit to us from doubling our precept, and all the workload and implications of us trying to run that service, which frankly we don't want to run, and we're not really set up to run. That wasn't the point of the town council. The point of the town council to do a host of other things. So it's an extraordinarily bad deal, and it's an extraordinarily bad day for Shropshire Council, and a bad day for Oswestry Town Council as well.
Okay, I'm going to ask one more time. Is there anybody else that hasn't spoken this evening about this that would like to speak? Okay, we therefore have a motion from James on the table, and we have a seconder from Jonathan. I'm going to go to the votes, but it's okay. I'm just going to, I think it's appropriate to wait for Darryl, if you don't mind. Think of Christmas things in the meantime. Not until Darryl comes back, if that's okay. think that's only fair given the importance. Yeah, we're gonna go to the vote. Is that all right? Of course. Fours against and abstentions. I forgot the word abstention yesterday. No, I know. I mean, I think it came across as a deliberate delayed silence in the meeting, but it was just simply what's that word again? Yeah.
So there's 15 of us in the room. So yeah.
Okay.
I'll just start. We will, if this is approved, then the next bit is to appoint working group.
Do you want to do that tonight?
Yeah, well, if we want any progress.
Yep, okay. So, councillors, we have a motion from James. We've got a
Still not back in the room.
seconder from Jonathan. When Daryl's back in the room, we will move to the vote.
I've just said to the mayor that the next stage then is to appoint the working group if you're minded to move. Accept the motion. Is there anything else I need from you?
Not yet. I think we've already got the motion on the table, James, haven't we? Okay.
I suppose the only question is, what do I do next? Because I can't wait for the... Are you giving me delegated powers to progress the proposal then as set out? Yeah, I'll need to do some initial stuff before the working group's set up. So that'll be, I'll leave that one thing. So for example, you know,
It's because it's quiet and dry, and you're thinking about it too much, that's all.
100 years of dust.
Years of dust. Okay. While we've got everybody in the room, we have a proposal on the table and a seconder. But Aaron, if there is an outcome of accepting it, then Aaron will need delegated powers to start a process. So, do you want to add in that into your motion? Okay, and you wanted to talk to it? Okay, very quickly then, James, and then we will move to the vote.
I think just to sort of reassure members, grounds maintenance doesn't just cover grass cutting, it does cover the whole maintenance of those areas that we're being asked to take on. We're being offered, what we've asked for is to take on the maintenance. Shropshire Council has virtually never given whole bits of land away to any council, so a long-term lease is what has been done for years and will probably continue to be done for years to come. It gives us the same, well, virtually the same sort of authority to do what we want on those bits of land, which could include applying our biodiversity policies, that is so important, and our climate change agenda can then be extended onto those areas of land as well that we're taking on. So I think it's quite disingenuous just to say that we're just taking on grass cutting from Shropshire Council when it's clearly a lot more than that.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table with the addition of delegated powers to the town clerk to progress before a meeting of a potential working group. Is everybody in the room comfortable with what we are voting on at this point in time? Okay. Councillors, it's a recorded vote, so I'm going to leave it to the town clerk to call your names out.
So I'll call your names out, and can you tell me whether you're for, against, or whether you're abstaining, please? No, somebody's pressing their button, so my mic goes off. So Councillor James Owen. Councillor Johnson. Well, yeah, that's fine. Go on, do it, Kerr. Councillor Walker.
For.
Councillor Kerr.
Against.
Councillor Froggatt.
Against.
Councillor Borroman.
For.
Councillor Elmet.
For.
Councillor Moore.
Against.
Councillor Wilson. Okay. Councillor Wendy Owen.
For.
Councillor Mark Owen.
For.
Councillor Upton.
For.
Councillor Simmons.
For.
Councillor Brimley.
I was out of the room for a little bit part of it, so I'm going to actually have to abstain on this case.
We didn't do any discussion in your absence at all. Very specifically voted for.
For.
Councillor Rosie Radford.
For.
Okay. So that motion is passed. So the next stage then is to perhaps appoint a working group.
Okay. I would certainly like to be on the working group. Errol.
I'm sure it's already been in the case, but I would like other representations from other parties to be in the group as well, and I think it would be voiced as well here.
Appreciate the offer, but I'm clearly we're opposed to it, so it would be a bit disingenuous to join a working group when you're actually opposed to the creation of a working group. I don't think I've seen the interest of the council those on the working group, so I mean, Stephen may do differently, but I don't think it would be appropriate.
Need more than one.
I'm fine. All the decisions are made prior to council, so it's fine.
Anybody else in the room that would like to be on the working group? Jonathan, Mark, Richard. Anybody else? Care.
So, that's in your gift. What I was going to say, just as important from an officer representation, is just not just me. So I'll be including the operations manager and finance manager and potentially some HR input from time to time.
Okay. Mark.
No, that's fine. I would have thought that maybe 6 members would be at least the minimum. Is it worth our while suggesting that we ask other people who aren't able to make it tonight because they've given apologies to make it up to 6? Just a suggestion, and we leave that as a possibility with the town clerk.
Wendy.
Sorry, I know without actually having set a meeting yet, are they likely to be daytime meetings or evening meetings? Because that would, I was going to say, if you were short, I would show an interest, but during the day I wouldn't be able to attend. So,
Yeah, it's a tricky one because, and I don't know the answer, but if we're having lots of officers, I don't really want them out. You know, often in the evening we could do the odd one, but obviously I'm well aware that it's difficult for members sometimes. So I didn't answer your question, but try my best to you know to meet the wishes of everybody. So thank you. We'll take that as a.
I would certainly prefer an evening meeting. But recognising that you can't work every hour of the day and night.
Yeah, there's colleagues as well. It's not me. I'm being able to bring professional expertise in, so relying on others at times. Next stage, I suppose, is to consider what you're asking them to do. In line with so it's to flesh out the proposal and advise me. Are you meeting with Shropshire Council?
James, are you able to email through what you'd said to a minute ago through to Aaron? Is that okay?
Yes, sort of the council do need to, so it's to flesh out the proposal. And liaise with Shropshire Council, again, would be another reason why most of the meetings will be possibly during the day if we're meeting with Shropshire Council officers, or are you happy to delegate that responsibility to me? So am I meeting with officers? So there's a whole host of things to perhaps work through. So are you advising me, or are you sitting alongside me as a full question? I suppose you're advising me.
We are advising you. So my thought is that you're talking to officers when they're available, feeding that into a working group with us.
To guide decisions, to inform
Yes.
council, to then get them through. Okay. Just want, it's going to move quite quickly, so it's really important that I'm clear, which I am.
Okay. I think, therefore, we can move on to 10B, the pump track land. And you have a report in front of you with some potential transfers of land. It feels like this is a really positive step. We have, for many years, been asking for a plot of land for a pump track, and previous councillors have gone to Shropshire Council to bring this to the forefront again, and we have now got some agreement for the potential transfer of some options of land for pump track land. Anybody in the room that would like to talk about pump track land? Duncan.
Hopefully it's going to move forward. It seems very slow, but let's get it moving forward a bit further. I am very concerned at identifying of Lewin Coppice. I did say this to the Cabinet. One of the major drivers of this is to try and reduce the risk of damage to the hill fort and indeed Lewin Coppice itself from people riding bikes, and it seems to be the very worst place to then put a pump track, because that would encourage people who want to ride bikes to the area and haven't gone round the pump track. They may notice, and they hadn't noticed before, that there's a wonderful hill fort which looks ideal. It looks been purpose built for riding mountain bikes on. So I personally would take that off the list. By all means, proceed on the other ones.
Thank you. From a personal point of view, and it always feels wrong to do this as the mayor, but from a personal point of view, the leisure centre land, or the land to the side of the leisure centre, has always seemed more appropriate in that it's flat, it's close to utilities, there's already water and electricity and car parking, and I've never seen that leisure centre car park full. And I think if we are looking at something that we want to span a good age range from very young to, you know, early teens, late teens and beyond, I think having the facilities of a car park as well. And when you've also got the leisure centre, so you've got the potential of people coming to the leisure centre and then seeing that, and you've got a college right next to it. And when you look at the 2021 census even, there is 900 under 16s, roughly speaking, within half a mile of the leisure centre, and just over 1,000 within a mile of the leisure centre. And that's 2021. Add in 600 houses at the bottom there, and it feels like you have a plot of land that is suitable for people, and also makes it very accessible for people that may be coming out of Oswestry to come and use the pump track. And my knowledge of the one at Ellesmere, for example, is that people do travel to that Ellesmere one, not just the people of Ellesmere themselves. And if you are looking at something that spans more ages and therefore is used better, then having a bigger version of something that has really good facilities seems appropriate, in my opinion. Mark.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be honest, I've got no preference for any of these because as long as the pump track actually gets put in, at the end of the day, it will be used. I think we're all fairly certain of that from seeing youngsters making use of facilities elsewhere. The only thing I would put in is that the Lewin Coppice site, and I hear what Councillor Kerr is saying, and I sympathise with it, but the number of people who are actually using the Lewin area at the moment with bikes, they're making their own pump track in effect, is quite significant. And the only question I have is how many of those would actually travel across the town to a pump track, say, by the leisure centre. The dedicated ones probably would, because if it can be made so that it is fun, they will probably do it. But the question in my mind certainly is to say, well, you know, will they still keep using Lewin Coppice as well as having the pump track in the leisure centre? Or if we give them something at Lewin Coppice, will that then stop further erosion and damage of that area?
I guess you could have both ways, couldn't you? Why would anybody from that side of Oswestry travel over? And Jake. Now I'll come to you, Fiona.
I'd say that it's the dedicated ones who are building the jumps and stuff. It's like those jumps don't just get chucked together in a minute. Those are kids taking shovels right the way across town, spending hours digging those up and compacting them and riding them. It's a lot of work. Certainly easier to just go to a dedicated pump track than it is to make all that effort. So yeah, I'd say it'd make a massive impact.
Fiona.
I know there's been concerns about whether people would go across town to go to the one at the leisure centre, if that's where it's built. But I don't know because I'm not there. What sort of age are the people using the pump track?
So, this is an interesting point because we talk generally about pump track, and it's the same with the previous council, without really describing or understanding what one is. So the size, who we're gearing it up for, because you design it based on who your user base is. So at this moment, it's very, very early in the stages of development. I'm a little bit nervous about doing a consultation based on not knowing what a design would look like or exactly where things are going to go. So there's quite a bit of work to be done to get to that next stage. I circulated some really good examples to you of places in Shropshire. And it depends on your level of ambition. There's no reason why you can build two. One for older kids, one for younger kids next to each other. So there's a whole host of things that you could do there, but we haven't got to that point in the discussion. So at the moment, it's like saying we prefer it on that bit of land as opposed to that bit of land. The easiest option is for us to have access to all the bits of land and then say, this is what we want to build, it's best off to go there, if any of that makes sense.
No, it does. It does. I think my other thought about the coppice is there's a lack of lighting. I find that even when it's kind of winter and dusk, as you're going towards like the basketball bit in the corner, that has absolutely no lighting, and I'm uncomfortable with encouraging an area of children on bikes in the dark where there is not lit open area. Jonathan.
So, thinking about all this, obviously concerns have been raised about travelling from one end of town to the other to get to the leisure centre. You could say the same about people travelling from Oswestry South East to the Copy, for example. I mean, taking into consideration that you've got Unicorn Road, which has existing infrastructure, which could be, to be fair, could be amended. Whereas, youngsters, or I don't know who they are, who has dug out the coppice to make their own sort of track, which is by all means unofficial. My point being that somewhere like Unicorn Road would be a good happy medium because either side doesn't have to travel so far. And given that Lewin Coppice is it's a landmark in the town, isn't it? And people use it not just for playing on the swings, they use it for walking around. If Lewin Coppice has to be chosen, make it in keeping with the area and add steps to ensure that someone taking a leisurely walk doesn't end up with someone zooming past them on their bike.
Question you may not be able to answer though is if you looked at Unicorn Road, is there space, and is there space for something to be increased in size if it were to be used a lot? Probably not an answer. The question is an answer.
Yeah, I think, I'm just sort of recalling the last visit to Unicorn Road. Yeah, there's plenty of land. There's a bit of work to do with it. It sort of goes on the back of properties, doesn't it? But, we don't, I suppose just avoid jumping to, let's build it here, let's build it there. I suppose where we're at is, let's ask people where they would prefer it to be in the first instance, and then because, we've been asked by Shropshire Council to do some consultation, so that's what we need to go back to based on where we've got, and say these are the options, here's our preference. But as we stand today, I don't know about the size. I don't know about things like power lines. So one of the options might be in Broadlands Way, but there's a big network going through that way. Don't know about planning permission. So the whole things we don't know. We're not. Or I suppose what are we wanting to do today is just to say thank you very much, Shropshire Council. Let's go and do some consultation, and we'll come back to you at a later date.
Duncan.
I would prefer to go back to your concept there, which was to say, I feel the leisure centre, because it offers some surveillance. We have had problems in Unicorn Road with people selling drugs and other materials there, and it's problematic to keep that area under surveillance. We've got a leisure centre in the store. If any kid falls over, needs an ambulance, there's somebody there most times. If we need to put CCTV or lighting on, it's possible next to the leisure centre. It becomes more difficult if you're in Lewin Copse or somewhere more remote. We say it might not be in the edge. We've got 700 houses being built outside of that area, isn't it? So the town centre is shifting along that way. You've got McDonald's opposite, and you've got Morrison's opposite. So I think I would prefer to go for consultation. So this seems to us to be the preferred site. Here are some other sites. By all means, public, tell us if you think one of those other sites would be better. I was passionate about this being additional. I don't want to see what's there at Unicorn Road ripped up only to put this there in its place. This I want to be an additional to what we've already got. I think it'll be a really retrograde step if we take anything out to provide for this. I suppose my concept was this is a teenager sort of thing, but it doesn't stop kids of young 4 and 5 using it. Doesn't stop Aaron using it on his bike as well. But if you wanted a sort of target audience, we're looking for kids who are able to move around, and they're the ones going up to Lewin Copse, frankly, and doing the work there, who can travel around the town. They travel to March's School, for instance, don't they? That's, a couple of miles for some of them. So I would, if you're recommended, I'll recommend it if you don't, that we actually go to consultation on that. This is our preferred location. Take into account all these factors. Here are the other potential locations. You tell us. We already have planning permissions already been granted on that site. We may need to renew it, but we know that conceptually planning permission is possible on that site, and that whole area can be developed in the future because it's protected from housing. So if it needs to expand, have additional facilities, it can all happen there.
Care.
So the lighting and CCTV, which was mentioned before, surely that's not an obstacle to upgrade an area. Like Gabowen playing fields, I've got CCTV, I've got lighting. It's not going to stop any kind of work going on there, is it? It's not. If you can install a pump track, you can install CCTV and lighting. And at the end of the day, if there's children around, we should have those safety features and things in play areas. And another thing, it might be our preferred, your preferred. We're town councillors, without asking everyone who's actually going to be using it, we can't say it's our preferred location because we're not going to be using it every day, are we, Duncan? We need to be going out and asking the people that are using it. So we can't approach them and say, this is our preferred, because there's several locations.
Okay, I'm going to go to Fiona, and then I'm going to go to James, and then I'm going to go to anybody else that hasn't spoken on this, if that's okay.
I think we need to move towards making a motion because we're just debating something that we have no real
Don't worry then.
control over.
Sure. You're very welcome to.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
I'm not
Sorry, just really quickly. We're talking about football, we're talking about encouraging Oswestry, we're talking about encouraging people in. As you say, that people go to Ellesmere from all sorts of different things. For me, that for all the things that Duncan has said, and just the very fact that it's almost like the gateway to Oswestry, if it's at the leisure centre, that you have somewhere that says, look, you know, we have this great thing here, almost as you enter Oswestry, just as a positive.
Okay. James, what? And then we do need to make a...
I think it's sort of adapting on what Councillor Johnson said, but even in the leisure centre site, I think there are improvements that could go alongside putting in the pump track that would benefit. Like, I'm not sure if there's a path to. I think you have to go across the college land to get to walk there from College Road, or go around Shrewsbury Road, which is walking along Shrewsbury Road is just a bit unnerving anyway. So it's a matter of if there is something we could do to try and improve the walking.
There is a public footpath which goes from College Road parallel to Judge Meadows, and it comes out in that piece of land. So just a point of information.
There is connectivity. And safety. It's important to think about safety, absolutely. Okay, the clerk has suggested that we undertake, as we've already started doing, a form of consultation. So I am going to propose, councillors, that we go with the suggestion of a consultation on a pump track, further to some additional information that...
Well, to be fair, I think you've got...
I did make a proposal that we say our preferred location for these reasons is by the leisure centre. We specify, as we have done articulately here, these are the other potential sites. You can choose which site you can. So it's not, as to get back to Keir Johnson, it's not saying this is the only site you can have. If you think another site is better, you tell us. That's absolutely fine. Obviously, yeah. Okay, well, the people give a chance to look, but it will say we have come to a view based on these criteria. And people can look at those criteria and come to a different view. And that way I think we can then progress with a bit more speed than we've been able to do so just so far.
Okay, one more person, Jay, and then...
I was just going to second Duncan's proposal. I think it makes sense. There is a preferred location. There's sense to have preferred locations on things because there's a lot of expense that goes with setting up CCTV networks. There's a lot of logistical problems just with trying to get a camera as far as Crestwood Court from where we are. You'll learn this sort of stuff as you. I know you're doing more stuff with the CCTV network at the police and stuff now, aren't you? I think there was a training thing there that you guys are going to. Speak to Jim Stafford about it there, and he'll talk, because I had the same thing. I was like, can't we have cameras here and here? And I was just told it's so difficult. So
we've got a motion.
There is a reason for it anyway.
From Councillor Kerr, we've got a seconder with Jay. Let's go to the vote. Councillors, all those in favour? Okay.
So I think that motion was carried.
Okay.
So this obviously slips as a priority, but clearly given the financial impact of the previous decision, that obviously needs to take most of my and team's time over the next coming months.
Okay. So, yeah, we do need to acknowledge that this is yet another bit of work to add to your workload.
It's an exciting project.
Yes, yeah. And we might go and see one.
Yeah, So the mayor and I have arranged to go to have a ride around the one on Ellesmere.
I'm not sure we said rise. I don't think that was on the agenda. I'm going to walk. Moving swiftly on to Q2 budget monitoring, slightly less exciting but important.
Yeah, so in previous years, we'd just give you the printout from our system. It's Rialtus. It is just basically a list of income and expenditure against codes. What I thought would be beneficial is for me to put some context to that, to try and explain some key issues. I think generally, we're in a relatively healthy position. It shows a surplus, but obviously that's at half year. It doesn't include the spend on the capital projects, which is the centre roof, which is a big expense. And obviously we'd get all our precept all in one lump sum at the start of the year, so that looks really healthy. We obviously don't double that in from October onwards. I'm really pleased that it seems, like I always have to sort of caveat this, but our income budget is performing strongly. Car parks are performing well, which I think we'd all be really pleased to hear. They fall most of the time, which is good. So yeah, obviously I need to reflect that in the future year budgets. There is a potential overspend on salaries budget. There are a number of reasons why that is the case. Partly just down to some adjustments on cost centres and some additional implications of the pay award and also of some additional overtime. Yeah, clear explanation. Just on the CCTV, you know that we're doing work around making our system really resilient and upgrading it. That's working quite well. We are now going through to look to appoint a CCTV coordinator. That advert will be out in the next couple of weeks. But there are some additional costs in terms of investing in the infrastructure to make sure that it is really fit for future purpose. That's it. All I'm asking for you to do is note it.
Okay. I think also it's worth noting that the budget report looks fuller and more explanatory, which is what, as councillors, we've asked for in the past. So thank you for that. Councillors, you are just being asked to note the report. All those in favour of noting the report? Thank you very much. Okay, we move on to a report from the Town Clerk, Project Development Officer, on a neighbourhood plan for Oswestry, which seems kind of pivotal in most of what we're doing at the moment.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I hope this report provides you some clear steps to progress. I'm grateful for Corrie, Project Development Officer, for the work in this area. We are in a period of transition, so we have agreed to backfill her role and to appoint a youth development worker. Clearly, I haven't got to that point yet, so she's trying to juggle both bits of work. Hopefully, by April 2026, we'll have this in place. As again, I hope that there are a clear set of recommendations for members to consider. Pleasing to note that we have a really good relationship with the planning team at Shropshire Council. Both the Naval Plan Officer has been helpful, and I think we've got a good relationship with Mr. West. I can't remember his job title at the moment. Head of Planning Policy. Yeah. So it sort of, excuse me, stands us as good state. Puts us in a good position. So yeah, 5 recommendations. Seems to be in line with what you've already discussed, and takes us forward.
Okay. Councillors, any queries, questions, comments? David.
Just a general thing. Now I know at Shropshire Council I'll have to leave the room for anything that comes from here to there anyway. I'm happy to go on the group now because I've previously said better not to be. But that's kind of immaterial now, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, no, it's a big thing, and what you've set out is bigger than what a lot of others are considering. As Felton Parish Council, their cost they're looking at is only 7,800 plus VAT. Horses for courses really, because what you're trying to leverage out of the plan fee is going to be quite important in terms of economic development and other things, not just around housing.
Okay. If there is no further comments, you okay? Do you want to get some more water?
Well, there are actually, I'm not sure there is a project. There is.
You can sit here if you like. Fabulous. Oh. Visions of being hit on the head with something. Okay, so the report recommendations are there's 5 steps. Unless councillors have a particular response to any one of those steps, shall we take them on block as the 5 recommendations to progress the Oswestry Neighbourhood Plan? I'm going to put a motion and say the motion is that I suggest that we accept the 5 recommendations in the report and start the process. Thank you, Mark. All those in favour? Excellent.
So next stage is to appoint a working group.
Okay. Mark, David, you said that. Duncan, Richard. Excellent. Anybody else? James? Good. Okay. Yeah?
Mayor and Deputy Mayor are on.
Yep. Yep. Add it to the diary. Fab. Okay.
Yeah, just to highlight, it is a bit of a task and finish piece of work. Your role is to set up the community group to succeed. A couple of you'll carry on and hopefully have input, but not everybody will need to be.
Okay. Brilliant. We move, therefore. Yeah, we that one, aren't we? Yep. Okay. We move on to item 12, which is a notice of motion in the name of Duncan Kerr. Duncan, do you want to summarise your motion? Because we've read our minutes.
Yeah, I think it's fairly straightforward. We heard a presentation earlier saying how important it was for us to have a panel where we can sit down with residents to plan together how we move towards the climate change measures, which as a community we need to take, because it isn't just about the town council, though it is about the town council. The other thing, with the light of the decision we made to proceed with taking on sort of grounds maintenance, we need to urgently consider our own what that means for our policies. We have our policies of not using glyphosates. Shropshire Council spray glyphosates like there's no tomorrow. So we're going to have to consider how we will manage these lands without any use of glyphosates, and also they will have to be accommodated within our carbon neutrality aspirations. And that's there's quite a lot of heavy machinery, so we'll have to consider that. So I think for a whole variety of reasons I've set out there, not least, I think, rather sadly, that we didn't do as well in Bloom as we might have done, because for the first year, we didn't achieve the top mark on environmental sustainability, and that's 30% of the award. And we were marked down on that because we were unable to convince them that we got a current biodiversity action plan. We actually had one, but because of all the other things on this agenda, we haven't had enough time to look at it at this agenda, which is just why we need a panel to work with the community to drive forward that issue. I do hope that we can just put behind whatever the reason was why we haven't had it in the past and continue to do it. By all means, change its name, change its remit. I'm not precious about any of that, but let's just have a panel that focuses on climate change, please.
Richard.
I completely agree that we should be making sure that sustainability and the environment is central to everything we do, but I'm really unconvinced that this is the way to do it. Having gone back through all of the meetings of the Climate Change Partnership Panel and its predecessor, the Climate Change Working Group, my view is that the panel specifically existing has not had an impact on our climate or biodiversity policies that could not have been replicated under alternative meetings. There have been 9 meetings in the last 4.5 years since May 2021. Partners often were only providing verbal updates where a discussion was had, but very little appears to have materialised from these. The largest projects that seem to have been focused on are tree planting, which appears to have been pretty much all down to Corrie to sort out and do the heavy lifting, and just providing updates to the panel, I also think that that as a project, if someone had proposed it to council, would have been supported completely anyway. DPAVE, which is the Shropshire Wildlife Initiative, which again were just discussions and reports without much detail, and Biodiversity Policy and Action Plan. The Biodiversity Action Plan was last mentioned in the last panel meeting in September 24, when it was resolved for the template to be brought to council. Other than mentioned in the minutes of the meeting when that was brought to council, the template itself has not yet returned to council for adoption. Perhaps the template can be brought to council at the next meeting. Another issue I see is the question of where the officer resource will be to facilitate another action plan, specifically around climate action or carbon neutrality. I would argue it should be councillors driving this forward as a priority, not simply giving the panel an excuse to exist for another year. It should be built into everything we do. One meeting every 3 months is not fast enough to develop a policy or action plan. However, having a focused working group just to develop the action plan led by members, not officers, for me would be a much better scenario that I would be happy to be involved in. I completely support the idea of meeting with the Climate Change Hub, but will consider that we should look at other ways of doing it rather than continuing the panel.
Thank you. Kath.
Yeah, so I just wanted to jump in as an active member of Oswestry and Bloom, as well as volunteering over summer off my own back before the Bloom visits. I do feel like it's a little bit unfair to say that Oswestry did badly purely because of the suspension of a single panel. When you're at the top, the other way is down, which the competition was tough, and we made it to the finals and got gold, and I don't think that's bad at all. Anybody who goes around town can see that everything looks unloved. There's graffiti everywhere. Street furniture's dirty with paint peeling. Bins left overflowing and various other issues. All you've got to do is walk around town and open your eyes. All of this were flagged by the judges as well. So I'd love to see even more action around increasing wildflowers, insect houses especially, tree planting, and an action plan seems like a good idea. But in the time it takes to write and then rewrite and then approve a plan, we could have just gone and done it, especially as, like Richard said, like it's not been discussed in September last year, which means last winter was missed as well, and the panel could have met. Like, does the council have needed knowledge around planting, like when to plant? Surely in Bloom, that's something that in Bloom could do with permission from the council, rather than the council having to directly do it. And from a little bit of digging, in Bloom's not actually been on one of the panels, but correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, so it's not been on any of, and that for me is like a no-brainer. It seems like an obvious choice. So I'd much rather hear about individual decisions, about how the individual decisions throughout the agenda are all having a positive impact towards goals rather than waiting 3 months.
Thank you, Chair. The point that the judges couldn't find the necessary evidence for the climate change was purely because we didn't actually put anything into each of the minutes of the committees, because we are about trying to incorporate them. That could be thought of for the future. We don't want a report for every committee, because that would put intolerable strains on the officers. But something simple as with Shropshire Council minutes, where it's a section which just highlights the fact that there is something in the this committee meeting or working group meeting which does involve climate change, is sufficient to provide the evidence which the In Bloom judges might well have accepted. I don't think it requires a separate panel meeting through the years to provide that evidence.
Okay, councillors, within the report, you have got some environmental. No.
You've had a notice of motion. You're discussing it without having had a seconder. So,
okay. Duncan, do you have a seconder? Do you have a seconder, Duncan? Do you know what you're seconding, Stephen? Okay. Okay, so we have a motion and we have a seconder. Let's take the vote on Duncan's motion.
I mean, in terms of in Bloom, they were actually complimentary about the cleanliness of the town. If you actually read the report, it says that the streets were maintained well, just reading the actual words here, they were impressed by that. I think the issue is that they expect somebody who's involved in Bloom, and that has been in the past, somebody from the town council, to actually be able to articulate to them how the council is looking and how
Duncan,
the town is looking.
with respect, you've already put your motion forward.
But I was just dealing with the point that had been made as to why you needed to have that identified for the judges. And if it's not, obviously the judges only see a certain part of the town, they need somebody to tell them about the parts they haven't seen, and the fact the council is working on it.
Okay.
A lot of comments have been made about that since September. The panel was disbanded in May, and obviously in the run-up to the election it couldn't meet because of Purdah. So we couldn't really meet beyond January of this year, so I think that's a bit disingenuous.
So, Duncan, we have your motion. Mr Froggatt is seconding that motion. We therefore will go to the vote. So, councillors, all those in favour of Duncan's motion as in your pack? All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? So, motion has not been carried, and we will therefore move on to item 13, report from the Finance Manager, Sundry Creditors. Unless councillors have got any burning desire to talk about anything in particular, I'm going to move this from the chair. We do see the Sundry Creditors regularly, so I'm happy to move that from the chair. We have a seconder, so councillors, all those in favour of acknowledging and adopting the Sundry Creditors? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Okay, move on to item 14, letter from TNS.
So I do need to bring you up to speed on what was a difficult issue with the running of the building. Has been, as set out in the letter, has been made more difficult over the weekend by some massive leaks in the roof as we've been doing the work. It's exposed other issues which we probably were aware of, but it's rendered most of the rentable space in that building unusable. So none of the office spaces are particularly usable at the moment. As a bit of context, TNS Foundation took on the building in good faith. They could have waited for the roof to be repaired, with the town council then liable for all the building costs up until that point. And rather than just ask for money, they've come up with a little bit of a proposal for you. I think it would be reasonable for the town council to cover the cost of the vacant, unusable room, which has been as a significant space and has extracted a lot of interest, and to make a contribution to the cost of the youth club. It's not viewed as a grant, hence a letter, and the budget, any budget, if you're minded to, would come from the youth services budget.
Okay, so councillors, we're being asked for £10,000 to support both the New Saints, the Centre Spot, Osnosh, all users thereof. I'm going to go to Duncan and I'm going to go to James.
You say not as a grant, but the way they quote this in monthly costs rolling on over a period of time, it looks like a grant and it feels like a grant to me, rather than we're in a commercial relationship with them. If they took it on knowing their problems with the roof, I mean, I would suggest we go back to them and say, you knew what you were coming into. If you want to renegotiate on that, then fine. And if you want a grant, apply through the grants process, rather than this sort of coming out of the blue, which, you know, have we got a budget head this fits under particularly? It just doesn't feel right to me that it's come to us in this fashion.
Do you want me to just quickly respond to that? And, you know, just in terms of the budget, there is an underspend on the youth services budget because somebody else has commissioned some of that work. There has been an evolving picture. Obviously, the issues with Osnosh and closing and the expected income from them and their tenants that we've inflicted on them, you know, it could be presented that way. So that's why it's come as a letter. I've not, you know, acknowledged the points that you made. It's for members to decide.
James?
I think just going forward, we need to ask people to go through the grants process if they're asking for money, just so that, again, it's sort of a due diligence thing of, so we can see it set out in the same way as, so that not just any group can approach us and ask for some money in an email. The thing I was just querying, it said about 10,000. It looks like they're asking for 10,000 until March, and then asking for another 10,000 until June. And I just wanted to clarify whether that was what they were asking for.
Yeah, that's what they feel that they need to make that building work.
Okay.
So, over to you, councillors. Duncan?
Well, I'm certainly not happy with the second 10,000 unless they apply for it through the proper way. I go back to the fact we have a commercial relationship with them. This isn't... the grants process is a way that we give money to bodies that we don't really have a commercial relationship like this. I think we go back to them and say, I think it's unreasonable. I think it's excessive. I think maybe TNS themselves could find some match funding to sum up half of it. You know, their chairman is quite verbose online about how successful they are. I think the clerk should go back and say that we want to that we're not minded to give this at the moment, and they should apply through the grants process, or come back and talk about the terms of the lease.
I will come to you, Duncan, in a second, but in terms of the grants, when's our next round and decision-making timescales?
Well, the next round is closed, with decisions to be made in January. However, you could, based on this, say, you can put a submission in now and we'll consider it in January.
And can I just be careful about what we're saying? TNS Company, or TNS Football Club, is not the people who are running, it's the community foundation, and we need to be very careful that we don't expect one to subsidise the other because they are entirely separate companies and don't take any account of what the owner of TNS Football Club may or may not be saying on social media. I think that's very disingenuous and dangerous to go down that path. Just in terms of what we granted, the issue we have with TNS is we have a shared ambition to deliver services to young people. So it's not like somebody comes to us with a bright idea and we say, oh, that's fine, we give you some money, go away and do it. If TNS stop doing that, we've got a centre with nobody running it. We have a shared commitment to that. And you can fund these things how you like, but in the past, where we've done the same thing, Bloom actually happened, we've set up a separate arrangement for recognising we share your ambitions and we're working together. We haven't asked them to go through the grants process. We've treated the grants process as people just to come to us who want to do good things sort of outside of the things that we're already doing, and we've given them money or not. And I'm not saying we should do it that way, but I'm just trying to say that if you push it into the grants budget, you'll possibly start to put a lot of strain on the grants budget, and you'll start to find that small organisations don't get a look in.
Okay. Councillors, I'm looking for some progress on this one. It's not coming from me. Jay, and then Mark.
It is difficult, and although I do agree with some of the points raised against, the reality is we are very much committed at this point to the centre. We've put an awful lot of investment into it. We don't have any options for any other partners, and as we have done previously with tenants in other buildings where we've been asked to support them in situations where they have fallen a little bit short on various goals that have meant income difficulties and things like that, we've always supported. To withdraw this type of funding and potentially risk this partner is something that I think, you know, we are responsible obviously for the building where there's a whole room that they can't use. These are legitimate things, and I think that, yeah, I'd propose that we do the first 10,000 and review for the second before any other further conversation goes. I would probably put to them at this point that we would maybe expect them to try and match fund the second half and try and fundraise on their own towards that. But by doing the first 10,000, that at least buys them enough time to set in motion some type of plan which will help them with that, because I think, in fairness, this is unforeseen. So I would propose that we support them with the first half.
Mark? Duncan, don't shock me. I'm just going to quickly move to Mark because he did have his hand up, but then I'm glad that we've got a proposal and a seconder, so Mark.
First of all, we're not withdrawing funding. It's just funding has been requested. The clerk attempted to tell us about leeway in the budget for youth services. How much leeway is there? And first of all, how much leeway is there?
So the time to talk, which you were commissioning SYA to deliver, they've secured additional funding from that. This has been reported to the Youth Services Working Group, and that was costing £12,000 a year.
Thank you. I wasn't sure how much was actually involved in that case. I'm not sure if it's it speaks to the actual motion in this case, or whether it's something completely separate. No, I'll leave it there. That's fine.
Okay, so in the room we have a motion from Jay, a seconder from Duncan. Let's go to the vote, councillors. All those in favour of that motion? Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Any abstentions or against?
No, I voted in favour. I just wanted to apologise because I have to go now because Sandra's not well. So I've just got to do some stuff with it.
Okay, annual town meeting. Do we, don't we,
No, there's
give
one
some
more.
advice?
Oh, no, sorry. Oh, I'm wrong. Oh, I'm wrong for once. Go on.
Colleagues, councillors, friends, annual town meeting. Any thoughts? We've got some potential, we've had previous topics there. Anything that anybody wants to talk about, rather than be on their phones?
Happy with me?
Multiple people.
Happy with my proposal? And let's go out.
Yep. Are we happy? Okay, so we've got a proposal and a seconder. Go for it.
Possibly considering a daytime and an evening meeting to attract various members of the public who might not be able to attend one meeting for their own purpose, but might be able to attend another one. It could be the same topic, but different times. The public is it is the most important one. It involves the public.
Yeah, I heavily rely on partners to deliver that if they're able to, and you're willing to come to both because you know, it's very much about you being there as well. So you're committing to do a full day. I'm happy to explore that, but you know, we are reliant on partners to do it. If it's okay with them, if we can, we'd like to. The other option is to then run another one later in the year and do that. You know, do that during the day on a Saturday morning, for example, and you could do that about something else. So,
Or you could potentially do a 3 o'clock and a 6 o'clock, and then they're not hanging around so long.
So a big commitment from partners who are doing this, you know, but we can try. We can absolutely try. I do, as it's the annual town meeting, and I've dug out my big yellow book, so it has come in useful. It does say that you can only hold the meeting after 6 p.m, which absolutely goes to show what sort of nonsense that the 1972 Local Government Act is and how it's so out of date.
Although we will follow it, because that's what we've got. Okay, so members, we're just being asked to agree to a annual town meeting in some form or other.
And I'm really pleased with the suggestion as well. So.
All those in favour? Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to Design and Shine, and the letter from Kevin that's in front of you.
So I appreciate that this you know, could have gone down the grants and donations route as well, and there are some challenges as a new organisation, which is why they've written to you as a, you know, potential phoenix from the flames here, designs in mind with working for 30 years is quite a shock. That they closed, given that the numbers that were there. Yeah, I think Kevin highlights quite eloquently how they were, and the reason of bringing forward is whether you wish to offer any interim support, only a small amount as a gesture to encourage them to carry on going, and that was the only reason for bringing it forward.
Do we have capacity within this building here to offer space?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so there's an option of offering, however you look at it, anyway.
A room free of charge.
A room free of charge, a warm room when the heating's working, free of charge, and that is central and accessible for people. We have a disabled access as well as a Fiona.
I think, you know, that's an excellent idea, but it's an art group, so what would they do with all their stuff? Are you offering them almost like a full-time room, because they're going to have stuff? I have one of my sons used it as a service, and it's a fantastic service, but they had fully functioning art studios, so I'm wondering what they're actually planning on doing now that they're sort of starting again a bit. Where are they going to store their stuff? Are they still, you know, going? What are the plans for the sessions?
So, I think the feedback from Kevin is that they're very much in the early stages of deciding. I think they were just keen to get together to start, so they didn't lose everything, and then work it out from there. So there is a little bit of storage space, but as I say, you know, it's only an offer. They can not take it up.
Mark, then Jay.
Thank you. As far as I can see, it's a great group doing great work, and I would certainly like myself to support them. I like the mayor's suggestion, because it actually doesn't mean that we fork out money immediately, but we're giving them the opportunity to actually have a space. I'm assuming that they were saying they got rooms potentially at so much a week. They wouldn't be able to store their art stuff there if it's a public one. So I think that here would be as good as the one they've got, and if it means that, you know, we are supporting them, then that's great as far as I'm concerned.
Jay.
I was just going to say, if you were proposing that, then I'd just happily second it. I think it's a good suggestion to offer them the space.
James.
I actually met them at the Makers Market in Memorial Hall on Saturday, and the one thing they did say is, like, by downsizing, they lost access to things like kilns, etc. So it might just be worth using our social media to ask if they can receive help from any partners or anything to have access to those sort of art facilities again, because even if it's a school or something, just to use their kilns to...
Yeah, Kev said exactly the same at Christmas Live. Yeah, it is that that equipment that takes it more than just colouring books, with the greatest respect.
Offering them a bit of support. So, yeah.
So I think my proposal therefore is that we suggest that we can offer a room here that can be on a regular basis, and even if they just want it for the first 6 months until they work out what they want and what it looks like, and that we support in terms of sharing information via social media and talking to our people in our communities, and that feels like a positive step forward. Duncan.
Can we just put a caveat on that, that if for any reason here is not suitable for them, that we agree to this in the interim, subject to them applying for a grant at a future date, because that at least gives the proviso of a fallback to what they've found already, if there is a good reason.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I like that one. Have you got that, Mr.
So
Clark?
just encourage them to put in for a grant.
Offer them here first, but if they can't do that, then the town clerk is empowered to say yes to the amount they've asked for to be at the Memorial Hall in the interim, but that's an interim measure, and if they want ongoing funds, they have to apply for a grant for it.
So let's just be, so how much would a couple £100 be okay?
How much is it going to cost to get up to the next grant round? I suppose the answer, isn't it?
So from now, it's going to be, it's a month, isn't it? Did we say a couple of months' rent?
200 quid. If here isn't suitable.
So there's happy with that proposal. Jay, are you still happy to second that? Excellent. Okay, councillors, all those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much. At this point, we're going to exclude public and press. Hello, Jonathan. Good idea. Happy to second that one. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Excellent. At this point, I will wait for Sandra to